Joan Esposito spent nearly 20 years in the TV news and anchor business in Chicago, but as the co-founder of J2's Strategic Communications, she's been focused on individuals and firms working on their media strategies. Esposito spoke with John Lothian News about what it takes to succeed today as video becomes more prevalent and critical to a company's communication strategy.
Video is king. Video is everywhere. As you know, there are companies that are putting their CEOs in little video clips on their website. And that's wonderful because it puts a human face and hopefully a passionate face on the company. But if someone does a video like that and they're dull or not energetic or not passionate or not clear, that's not helping your company. That's not putting your company in the forefront. That's taking your company a step back. Short, simple, declarative sentences are much trickier than the average person realizes. Everyone can communicate to a greater or lesser degree, but being able to speak clearly, succinctly, sound bites, if you will. I mean, there's a reason that we call them sound bites, is because they're short, they're simple, they're clear, declarative sentences, jargon-free. And if you can speak that way and speak that way with a passion, you're golden. What my company J2 does is we'll work with somebody, and sometimes we'll even put them on camera. We'll record a disc, or we'll record them to their iPad so that they can see what they're doing and what they sound like. Most people have no idea how they come across. They really don't. And when they do see themselves, especially for the first time, they're usually horrified because they don't think they look like that or sound like that. But people make the same mistakes, especially if it's a person, a business executive. You don't want to look foolish. You want to look businesslike. You want to be respected by your peers. You don't want to do anything to make yourself look silly. So what do people do? They pull back. They pull back emotionally. They pull back with their tone of voice. Especially they retreat into jargon because they want to sound smart. They want to impress the other CEOs. They want to, if they're a doctor, they want to impress the other doctor. And they forget that they're talking to real people. There's nothing that can replace clear communication. Whether you're a CEO and you're trying to communicate to the middle managers, whether you're a middle manager trying to communicate with your sales staff, whether you're a startup trying to pitch your idea in a way that's clear and concise and exciting. Communication is the bedrock. That's not going to change. I think it's only going to become a more difficult skill to have as we rely more and more on nonverbal means of communication. It's going to require some effort to remember how to do this. Nothing is ever going to do away with the need to sit across the table from someone and look them in the eyes and say, this is my idea, here's why it's amazing, and here's why you should invest. This is my product, here's why it's amazing, and this is why you should buy it. And you've got to do that in language that's clear, concise, straightforward, simple declarative sentences. Clear, concise communication isn't just spoken, it's also written. How interesting is your Twitter feed? What does your Facebook page say? Are you putting your best foot forward? And communication face-to-face is one of the things that we excel at. But we also, most of the people who work for my company have spent years working in and continue to work in media. They're producers, they're writers, they're radio talent, they're television talent. And you can't do that year after year after year without learning how to speak clearly and how to write clearly. And we share that. There are a lot of big companies, the names of the big ones, that are one-stop shopping. You're paying them $10,000 a month, and they're writing your press releases, and they're being your PR agency. And if you go to a company like that, they'll say, oh, sure, we can do some media training with you. We can do some media consulting. But the people I know some of the people who work for those companies and do what I do. Generally, they're people who have no actual media experience, and if they do have it, it's minuscule. Okay, Sandy, you were on radio for 3 months after you graduated from college. You're going to be our media trainer. And what they do is they give them a book, and it's like, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. And if you're the kind of client where step 1, 2, and 3 work for you perfectly, then terrific. But I would argue that 1, 2, and 3 doesn't fit everyone. One of the first things we do is we sit down and we listen to somebody. What is it you want? What is it that you want to happen? What is the best outcome? What is it you're trying to say? And then we take it from there. If you're an expert in the financial world and you are speaking to your peers, go for it. Load it on with all the jargon and the arbitrage and the dark, deep pools and all the rest of it. But if you're going on CNBC and you talk like that, you will never be invited back. Do you want to be the person who gets a one-shot interview, or do you want to be the person who goes on CNBC and does such an amazing job that they put you in their Rolodex? Oh my gosh, anytime we have this subject come up, this is the person we're going to call. And that's the difference between speaking to your peers and speaking to the wider audience. That's where we can work with somebody and break down the jargon. So what you're saying is this person buys and this person sells. Well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Well, you know what? Say it that way, because the wider audience loves when they can understand something. And the default position is to retreat into jargon because you don't want to look silly. You want to look smart. You want to impress your peers. But in the long run, that hurts you when you're trying to talk to a wider audience. My goal working with somebody like that would be not just to have one interview where they knock it out of the park, but that they do such an incredible job that CNBC calls them over and over again and they become a regular. That actually happened with one of my clients. I was dealing with a client who knew they were going to be interviewed on television. And he said to me, I don't want to just do a good job for this interview. I want to be the person they come to every time this subject comes up. So we worked for several hours. And it was a really unusual situation because unbeknownst to the client, a few weeks later, I was at a charity event and ran into the reporter who had done the interview. And of course, not letting anything on, I was like, saw that interview you did a couple of weeks ago with so-and-so. How were they to talk to? And the reporter turned to me and she was like, oh my God, they were amazing. It was one of the best interviews we've ever done. After they left the studio, we were all talking about what an amazing interview it was. And all I could think of was, yes, that it was exactly the goal. That client is going to get called again when that topic comes up. Even when you're doing a video for your website, your company, your product, you're not just talking to your peers. You are talking to a wider audience. And frankly, let's be truthful. Even some of the peers might not understand all of the really technical talk. If you can make things a little clearer, a little simpler, a little more straightforward, that can only help you.